Hey guys, what's up? It's Finch here. Today we have a game for the World Cup Pokemon between Dice of Team US Midwest and Jake of Team US West. So, Dice and Jake, two really good friends of mine and really strong players. Dice has had a long history of achieving high results in various generations of OU. For example, he's done very well in SPL and Black White, and he's also played ADV and GSC at a great level, made it all the way to Classic Finals, and he even had a decent stint in SMOU in recent Smogon Snake Draft. So, seeing him play a newer generation of OU is always really exciting. He has some cool ideas, so it's gonna be interesting to see what he has up his sleeve here. Jake, on the other hand, went from an old black and white NU player to kind of dabbling around for a few years in a couple different tiers to finally finding himself at home in Little Cup, where he's actually now the tier leader and one of the best tournament players. He's had a lot of strong results in that tier recently, so it's interesting to see both these guys in SSAU. They've both been around for a while. When I started in tournaments, these guys have already been pretty much established. So yeah, Jake is on Team US West and Dice is on Team US Midwest, and we already saw a matchup between these two teams on my channel. Previously, the IMA versus Manat game. Definitely check that out if you guys are interested in World Cup and these two teams in particular. But we now have their next game. I believe that West is off to a pretty good start. Well, Zomog, one of their star players, unfortunately 0-2 right now. Rough matchups he's ran into. The rest of their team has been doing quite well. Valentine today split 2 games, but besides that, they've been winning a lot of games. Midwest, on the other hand, hasn't played as many games, so it's still kind of to be determined as to how they do. Anyway, Dice is using a balanced team with Hippowdon, Toxapex, Isidrill, Hydreigon, Scizor, and Clefable, whereas Jake is using a similar balanced team, but he has Aegislash, Mandibuzz, Reuniclus, Excadrill, Hippowdon, and Toxapex. Pretty solid. We're going to see both Steel types lead off. Non-drill Steel types, that is, we see a Scizor against a Aegislash, and both switch out in fear of strong attacks that the opponent couldn't throw at them, and ultimately we're going to see Toxapex on Toxapex action with a Skull doing 5% to Jake prior to him switching out his Hippowdon on it. Yeah, and we're going to see Knockoff here on another Scald. Knockoff's going to do 11% to Jake, and Scald's from Jake is going to burn the Dice Toxapex, so pretty much the handshake, the early game maneuvers between two Toxapex. Jake is going to beat Toxic Spikes, which is helpful, because that will make the Hippowdon be just a little bit more deterred from switching in repeatedly, but it doesn't really impact anything else in this team, so Toxic Spikes aren't too good this game, especially considering that Dice not only has a Defogger, well, actually a Rapid Spinner in Excadrill, but also a Toxic Spike Absorber in his own Toxapex, so probably not going to do much good here. Either way, we're going to see Dice pivot into the drill now, knowing that he got a burn on it and forced to recover here. Now, this could be a major threat with Earthquake, however, Hippowdon is able to keep it in check, so he's going to actually go for the Rapid Spin, removing the Toxic Spikes, which is a smart play. However, the Hippowdon does reveal its Rocky Helmet over Leftovers, so it's going to leave the drill 90% after Leftovers of its own, and we pretty much are at square one, but Jake has a little bit more of a crippling on his Toxapex in the long haul. Oh, speaking of crippling Pokemon, we're going to see Dice go for Toxic into the Hippowdon. That's amazing. Now the Hippowdon is permanently crippled, while the Dice side did let Rocks up from Hippowdon on that turn. That is not enough to really negate the progress to Toxies, because you can get a Rapid Spin off whenever, and Pex regenerates off the damage, Hippowdon takes resistant damage, and Clef is immune to Stealth Rock, so definitely a great turn there for Dice, predicting the Stealth Rock, or just a non-Earthquake in general, and getting that Toxic in. I'd say that was a really smart play. Personally, I would have waited off a little bit and tried to beta switch into it, but Dice is a really great player at kind of finding openings and making the most of them. I think that's what makes his game stand out from a lot of other players across the generations. That coupled with his really unique team building style, and I think that's also showcased here with some cool picks such as Scizor, so I'm really interested to see what he makes of that. With that said, though, the other Steel type on Jake's team, the Aegislash, able to double in here, but it comes in on Dice's Hippowdon. Presumably he's trying to get Stealth Rocks of his own, so that's a pretty good switch for Dice, but he's got to watch out for a Spec Shadow Ball, of course, and he does watch out for that and goes for Stealth Rock, as Aegislash switches out knowing it would die to an Earthquake, so if it's attacks, that makes sense. So Rocks are now up on both sides, and the Mandibuzz comes in. Mandibuzz has to watch out for Toxic from Hippowdon, which is increasingly common, but it seems as if he doesn't really respect that prospect as he goes out to Clefable here, and Jake stays in and goes for a knock on that turn. So yeah, the Clefable is not knocked off, but honestly, looking at the team here, I wouldn't be shocked if it was a Flame Clef. So he's probably going to rely a lot on Toxapex to wall that, and what's interesting about this Toxapex is not only is it wasted to recover PP already, but it's burnt and knocked off, so in the long haul, a Combine Clefable actually can be threatening to Jake's team, to the point where he might have to rely on a Psyshock or Reuniclus to keep it in check if it's not an Assault Vest variant. And that is interesting because that potentially invites in the Scizor, and I think in the long haul those sequences favor Dice, but in the immediate present, I don't think he's able to make progress off of that. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does that. Oh, it's actually a taunt variant of the Mandibuzz, and it is indeed of Combine Flamethrower Clefable, so well, I was correct about that. Unfortunately, I was not correct about how Jake would approach it. Jake doesn't bother going to Toxapex. Instead, he stays in, gets a taunt off, which is a smart play. Moonblast comes in here, and it only does 26% to Sweetie Marie Nicholas. And yeah, keep in mind, it wasn't even life orb to begin with. It was leftovers to begin with, but that indicates that it had very little special attack investment, if any. And Combine variants tend to run physically defensive, which is great in this metagame against things like Urshifu, Halucha, which are increasingly common. Even soft-checking non-gunk shot Cinderace, although he does have a Powdown and Doc specs for that, to be fair. Scissor comes in here on Aegislash, and we are back where we started from the lead. It's interesting that neither has leftovers. Perhaps this could be an offensive Swords Dance Scizor from Dice, in which case, if it has the move Psychic Fangs, which is new, it's able to threaten the Toxic, so it's knockoff, it's able to threaten Aegislash, so it's going to depend a lot on the set. And Swords Dance at +2 can likely do a lot of damage to the Toxic to Powdown, but the thing is that an offensive Scizor, unlike Mega Scizor, is going to take a lot of damage from something like a Powdown's Earthquake or a Shadow Ball from this Aegislash. So he's got to be careful here, and seeing that, he switches out here as Aegislash goes for a Shadow Ball. It's going to only do 27%, but it's going to get a special defense drop. Okay, that's interesting. So surely that's not a choice specs Aegislash, given that it only did 27%. But the drop does put the Tox specs into a kill range. I wonder if we're going to see a follow-up Shadow Ball here, and if Dice is going to say, okay, I don't want to let that drop do more to me, and he goes to something like the Hydreigon. And can Jake potentially predict that? Alternatively, though, I know something that some people have tinkered with is Assault Vest Scizor. Personally, I would only use it with Witchclaw, which I highly doubt it is, considering that it is a Flamethrower Clefball, as we've already seen. But you never know. Dice always has some more radicalized takes on team building, and I wouldn't be surprised if he forgoes that support in order for maximizing defensive potential so that he can make the most of his offensive options, like Excadrill and Hydreigon, in return. Either way, Toxapex just goes for a Scald here, not fearing the repeated Shadow Ball Assault, and it's going to do 16% to Marie Nicholas, and then he doubles to Scizor as the Aegislash comes in, and that's a favorable turn for Jake, because Scizor takes normal damage from Stealth Rock, whereas Aegislash is only taking half damage, so Aegislash is if it's taken like a normal round of Stealth Rock or round of Spikes at, 89, 87%, I guess it says 89 here, okay. Whereas Scizor has taken 2 full rounds, so it's at like 75, 76, yeah, as you can see. And we're going to see the Shadow Ball once more into the Pex again for 25%, but this time it's not going to drop, so that's very good for Dice. I'm curious to see if Jake is going to pursue this or switch out again, and this time he switches out to Tox Specs on the Knockoff, which is completely free for Dice. It's a good play there. So that Knockoff only does 4%. They're both burnt, but it's worth noting that Dice's Tox Specs does have the Black Sludge equipped. Marie Nicholas now comes in here, and it is leftover in that life orb, so I think Toxapex is inclined to stay in here and go for the knockoff again, right? He does just that, knowing that he doesn't want to bleed out all of his Scizor's stealth damage to Stealth Rock, because it probably isn't going to be recovering much. We now see Toxic Spikes here from the Toxapex, which is interesting. Again, he's trying to punish your Powdown being switched in, which makes sense for his Excadrill, perhaps. And speaking of making sense for Excadrill, he goes to Clef here, not wanting to take off Thunder Paralysis, potentially from the Marie Nicholas. So that's a smart play. Taking the poison there, and you can probably go back to the Toxapex at some point before bringing in the Powdown. So definitely well played here by Dice, just doing all the little things to try and edge out a more favorable position in the long haul in this game. With that said, however, I do think that Jake still has a decent shot at winning this game with the right Marie Nicholas set, if he's able to force a little more chip onto the Scizor. Focus Blast looks really good in this game in particular, especially if it's paired with Side Shot, because Focus Blast will be able to do damage to the Hydreigon, and the Nasty Plot Hydreigon looks really menacing to Jake's team. In fact, if Dice is able to get that in safely repeatedly, then I think it's going to be hard for Jake to fend it off from getting one kill each time it comes in. Of course, afterwards it can be revenge killed by Drill if Sand is up, but if Sand is not up, then it's going to actually be a very hard game for Jake to combat that. And actually, we're going to see an overprediction here from Dice go for the Flamethrower into the Toxapex. It just recovers up. That's smart. I don't see much of a reason for the Toxapex to switch out of the sequence personally. He's going to be bled out of his recovery PP in the long haul, but I'm assuming its last move is probably going to be Haze. It definitely isn't Knockoff at this point. It would have used Knockoff already, so given that, I think it's more likely than not going to be Haze. And that would shut down a Combine Clefable, which I'm assuming it is because of Flamethrower. Speaking of Combine Clefable, he goes for that as Jake predicts that switch and goes to his Excadrill, which is a fantastic play. And with Stealth Rock and Toxic Spikes up, the Drill's not going to want to switch in and take the poison here. So now I wonder if Jake is going to predict the Toxic Spikes to absorb the Toxic Spikes on a Rapid Spin or Iron Head and go out to that. And if Jake predicts that and tries and goes for an Earthquake here. In fact, personally, if I am on the Jake side, I'd definitely go for Earthquake on this turn. Admittedly, it does leave you potentially vulnerable to Clef going for a Flamethrower, but it would to kill it, and Iron Head could potentially kill a faster variant of Combine Clefable that lacks the defense investment. So therefore, I think that this would be the right form of aggression for Jake. However, Dice, knowing that prospect, is definitely a valuable one to account for. He goes to his Powdown. Now, it would be cool here if Jake uses Magnet Rise, but I'm almost certain that he lacks Magnet Rise. But if he has some bulk, he actually would be able to live this Earthquake 100% of the time. But I don't know if that's a worthwhile trade, considering you were able to force the poison on it regardless of the fact. So maybe it's best to say, okay, nah, I'm going to force another round of poison and Jaws Rock on it, and then maybe set up next time as I get in on the Clefable or the Locked Scizor or something like that. So he opts to go to Mandibuzz here on the Earthquake. That's a really smart play there from Jake. He not only made progress by getting poison on his Hippowdon, but also he's just scouting out how Dice interacts with certain situations, and that can be used to condition him more in the long haul. And I think that's a really underrated aspect of a lot of these drawn-out SSU games. The fact of the matter is that while there's a lot of things that are kind of linear and automatic and on paper among the best players and people who understand the game at a theoretical level high enough, there also is a certain level of, okay, I notice he's doing this in this situation repeatedly, so I can change my line of play and maybe open myself to a risk that I know he's not taking and counteract his state of play, which is what we call conditioning. Let's say player 1 does a certain play 3 times in a row, and then you're like, okay, that play has gotten the better end of me, or just put him in a neutral position all 3 times. So next time I'm going to make a play to specifically counteract that play, knowing he's going to go for it again, as I've lured him into a false sense of security with my own conservative play, which opens outlets for more aggressive play. And I think that this sort of sequential counterplay is something that really deserves more of a mention in the competitive scene. I feel like it's almost neglected among players when discussing how to approach games and what sequences to provoke. And I think this makes Pokemon like pivots and things that are often mid-groundable, such as regenerative Pokemon like Rheaniclus, well, not in this game, but also Toxapex and Mungus, super valuable as they're oftentimes used as leverage in these situations. And I think Jake has exhibited that at a pretty nice level thus far with his Toxapex dice as well. But with the Toxic Spikes now impacting the Hippowdon, the Toxapex actually doesn't need to come in as urgently with the Toxic Spike up, as it impacts nothing else on his team. Anyway, we're just going to see some pretty conservative turns, a couple of Flamethrowers. I wonder if this lacks... Oh, it has Moonblast, so... I guess he's just repeatedly predicting the Steel type, knowing he's not going to do much damage to this anyway, but it's worth noting that he stalled 3 recovers here. Personally, if I am Jake, I'm never going for a cover against this. I'm just going out to Rheaniclus unless it's a +1 or +2, in which case I'm hazing. Because there's no point in letting this set up all over me and making me make all my recovers. I'd rather him waste more of the practical PP than I do. So ultimately, we're going to see the Drill come in here now as the Toxapex goes for a recovered here, and it should be able to live a Earthquake here. So I wonder if he's going to go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to try and get a Scald Burn here, or a knockoff here, whatever it may be. And he goes for the Scald on the Rapid Spin, which is a smart play. It does 49%, and he lands a burn, which is really good for Jake in Team West here. That's going to cripple the Exodil for the entirety of the game. Now Hydreigon comes in here now as the Aegislash does, which is a great play for the Dice side. It's going to potentially threaten this with the prospect of a Dark Pulse. However, if it's just Flamethrower, then it's not going to threaten him. And because of that, Jake stays in here, and he goes for the close. Actually, yo, this is a Scarf Aegislash. I'm almost certain it's a Scarf Aegislash, given how he played that. So, for example, he went for Shadow Ball before, and it only did just a very little bit of damage to Toxapex. And he's not like Leftover, so it's not like Subtoxic. I don't think that's Spell Tag damage, so it's almost definitely going to be Choice Scarf, which does make sense. It's Revenge Killing Hydreigon on this team is really hard. Revenge Killing Cinderace, 240 +1. You're slower than Cinderace. Okay, Revenge Killing Hydreigon is the point. Revenge Killing Gengar is super important on this team. Oh my god, it's Sandtomb. No, that miss is so unfortunate. Oh my god. No. Oh, that would have just trapped the Toxapex. That's awful. Oh, guys, press F in the comment section if you really find that unfortunate. I'm so sorry for Dice. I mean, that's a really interesting tech. And now keep in mind that while it's only 35 base power that is Technician boosted, coupled with the fact that it's not going to allow switching for 4 to 5 turns, so that's a really positive thing for Dice if it were to connect on that turn. But now that Jake's aware of this potential move on the Scizor, there's simply no way that he's going to keep this Toxic in repeatedly on the Scizor, and that is a big problem, as Dice was able to rely on that luring sequence to help open up the game for things like the Clefable, because the Clefable with Comment plus Flamethrower would have forced the hand of things like that Aegislash, although it might have Destiny Bond, or the Excadrill, and just 1 or 2 timely Flamethrowers on the switch, and it can get in repeatedly on the Mandibuzz or on the Hippowdon. He's going to open up the game, and I think that would make Dice not necessarily favored, but certainly in a very winnable position, whereas right now he's pretty far behind, and it's going to solidify his position as being behind, unfortunately. So I definitely think that's a really, really unfortunate turn for Dice, unfortunate turn for Jake. Jake actually is going to switch out to Mandibuzz here, and perhaps trying to call that play. Dice goes outside Dragon here, but it's just going to take a U-turn in all likelihood, so I don't know if this was really the most progress-oriented play, but he didn't know this was coming out yet. So now, on the Toxic, wait a minute, it's Taunt plus Toxic plus Knock, so it's Roost last. It's interesting set on the Mandibuzz. That means it's for sure going to be Rapid Spin on the Drill. So Swords Dance, Earthquake, Iron Head, Rapid Spin is the Excadrill set, which is interesting. I don't love sets without Toxic or Rock Slide right now just because Mandibuzz is so common, but This set actually works wonders here. Anyway, Clef goes for Flamethrower here, predicting a Steel type, but Toxic comes in once more. Good play from Jake here. I don't think he's going to go to Aegis Slash on this, honestly. So Calm Mind is the play here. On a Scald, okay. Now we're going to see Hydreigon come in here on it. Haze, presumably, yes. It is, in fact, Haze. Hydreigon is now in, and we know this isn't able to do much besides Scald Burn it. So Hydreigon is Nasty Plot. Now is a better time than ever to stay in and go for that. But I'm wondering if Jake is going to go to his Aegis Slash and try and go for close combat here, knowing that a Flamethrower is almost definitely not going to come out. Or I wonder if Dice sees through that being a Scarf variant of Aegis Slash and can go for the Flamethrower here, predicting that mid-round. However, going for Flamethrower into the Mandibuzz or in this Toxapex is going to be a big setback, especially of the Life Orb variety, so Nasty Plot is a really valid play for Dice as well. And I'm really curious to see how he's going to interact with this sequence at this point. He knows he's behind the game and he's got to make progress. Despite it being a 6-6 game, I feel like Jake does have the legs up right now, and now knowing that a Sand Tomb without being trapped due to the miss is an even bigger advantage for the Dice side. Hydreigon is definitely a major threat to Jake's team, but I think the Scarf Aegis Slash is going to go along. He goes for Nasty Plot on the Scald. Scald is 9%. It does not burn. That's a really useless turn for Jake. I strongly disagree with how he approached that turn. He's now definitely losing something to Drago Meteor here, unless he goes Aegis Slash and just barely stomachs that. At 83, after Stealth Rock, if it's offensive and Scarf, it honestly might just die. So I don't know if anything lives this Draco here, honestly. This is bad. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to pause for just a millisecond here. Yeah, anyway, Jake is just scrambling to try and find a way out against this. He goes for another Nasty Plot. I think that's a little greedy from Dice, but he does it on a Haze. Perhaps this is not going to be of the... maybe he's going to... Oh, he goes for Cover here. Okay, now if he's not Draco, maybe this makes sense of it, but if he's Draco, then I can't see why he wouldn't go for it here. Finally, he gets the Nasty Plot up again. So if it's Draco, I just don't see a reason not to go for it here. There's no Fairy type. He goes for a Nasty Plot again on the Recover. Well, oh shit. Now he goes for the Draco, surely. Unless Dice is not Draco. I just ate my words like 5 times over. Okay, wait, he's not Life Orb. Okay, this is surely Scarf Aegis Slash. Maybe he's Choppleberry. That would be kind of funny to see. But Dice would, if he's not Choppleberry, then he should surely get out of the way here, as this is definitely going to be a Scarf Aegis Slash. I think the play is simply to go to Toxapex in this turn. It can absorb the close combat or even the Shadow Ball here. And if it for some reason doesn't kill with Shadow Ball, it would also negate the prospect of a Destiny Bond. So ultimately, this is just a really easy switch for Dice, because he could get this in repeatedly on things like the Mandibuzz or the Hydreigon, and maybe he'll take a Toxic, but still, Reuniclus as well, as Reuniclus oftentimes does not run Focus Blast. In fact, it seldom uses Focus Blast. Thunder is a much more common fourth move on the Calm Mind variant of it, and we saw it was not Regenerator, it was Magic Guard, so it's almost definitely going to be Calm Mind, Leftovers, Side Shock, Recover with the coverage move, and I just think it's more likely they're not going to be Thunder on a team with Excadrill in particular. Yeah, we're going to see the Scout here from Dice, but Jake calls him out on net and goes to Reuniclus, which is a phenomenal play here. So that's going to potentially set him up for some success in the immediate future, as he can now go for a Calm Mind here and pose a major threat to Dice's team. But with Scizor being present, and also being able to trap with Sand Tomb, what if it has Swords Dance and a Bug Mover as well? Or Swords Dance and Knockoff even? I personally am not sure what Sand Tomb runs. Either way, we're going to see the Calm Mind here on a Knockoff. That's a smart play from Dice, as he shouldn't be immediately threatened by this, especially with Toxic Spikes off the field. Actually, never mind, the Hippowdon's already status, so... He goes for Haze now on the Recover, knowing he's going to be able to stomach any hit at +1, which is smart. And now Scizor comes in on this turn, which is a Calm Mind, okay. Unless the Stealth Rock off, doesn't take any damage, which is helpful. I assume we're going to see like a U-turn here if he has it. He goes for the U-turn into the... He goes for U-turn into Hippowdon. It does 29%. Hippowdon's now under 50% as the Hydreigon comes in to try and revenge kill it. This is a really good play from Dice. I think Dice all of a sudden is slowly clawing into the upper hand position of this battle. Although one could argue that this Hydreigon was destined for success in the long haul regardless. And the Draco's going to do a nice 32%. The Aegis Slash on Jake's side, despite not having Life Orb, which is a really strong attack there on Dice's team. So I'd say he's making a lot more progress than Jake is at this point. I don't know if the matchup is going to enable Jake to really have any sweeping prospects with the Reuniclus against the Hydreigon, plus the Scizor, plus the Excadrill, plus potential Whirlwind on the Hippowdon, plus Haze on Toxic, plus Clefable setting up first. It's just a lot of measures that might not hard counter Clefable, but all can do pretty well against it. Now we're going to see the Drill switch in on the Toxapex. That is a great play there from the Jake side, trying to gain some momentum and kind of just get his way out of this game. However, he goes for Earthquake. Wait a minute. Scald is going to burn? Is Scald going to burn? He gets the burn on the drill. That is amazing for Dice, and he's going to hang on. He hangs on at just 1% with the Toxics. Wow, that is the best turn ever for Dice. And Rapid Spin there from Jake is good, but he's going to take helmet damage, leaving this drill burnt and at under half health, and in range of things like Earthquake, where it can't even kill this Poison Hippowdon. So all of a sudden, I think Dice is a pretty commanding lead at this point. I think he's played this game at a very high level. And it's not that Jake has made mistakes, but rather Dice has picked his spots really nicely with things like that Hydreigon and forcing progress with his Toxapex. So yeah, now the Taunt Mandibuzz is going to come in and probably just go for that if I had to guess. But we'll wait and see. As the Hippowdon does come in, actually double switch, predicting the, I don't know, maybe the Clef, but after Poison, he's got to watch out for Moonblast. He might be able to live one and heal up a little bit, but he's barely going to recover anything. So at this point, do you even risk this? Or do you go hard Excadrill or even Aegislash on this turn? Personally, Excadrill makes more sense to me. With the Toxapex dead, this Clef is a major threat, and I can't see it losing, honestly. Barring the Drill getting really lucky against Hippowdon. But yeah, either way, we're going to see a Moonblast down his lock off, and then a Combine as the Reuniclus comes out there for Jake. He's going to go for Moonblast the first time, doing 42% on a Combine there from Jake again. A crit could kill here, so he might go for it one more time. But no, he opts to go to Scizor, which makes sense on a Recover. I wonder if we're going to see a Recover here to try and heal off the U-turn damage. Well, we're going to see them finally take time here. Jake's timer is down to 60 seconds after all. I think that Dice is probably the one thing. The thing is, if you're Jake, you probably just go Mandibuzz, right? It's at 86, it's unstatused. Your Pound's at 44 in status, so you can't go to that truly. And if you stay in on a Swords Dance or a knockoff or something, that's just unfortunate. So yeah. I guess eventually he's going to have to stay in, though, to win the game, potentially. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Given that U-turn did 29% to a Hippowdon, it's probably going to do about 70. 81 to this, wow. So this might not be a physically defensive fully Reuniclus here. It takes 81 from that, and it's probably going to just recover that up. Yeah, so that's helpful. Is that Choice Band Sandtomb? That would make some sense. But and it goes for Energy Ball here, and he outruns. Wait, this is a super fast Reuniclus. Unless that was a Whirlwind. That was probably a Whirlwind. But yeah, so that Energy Ball took that out. So all of a sudden, it looks pretty decent for the Excadrill on Jake's team. But unfortunately for him, the burn kind of enabled Dice to throw that away there. And now it lets the Scizor come in here and go for another U-turn, which is not only going to kill this, but also it's going to do a lot of damage to anything else. He goes to the Drill here and it just dies from 42, which is funny. This is definitely a banned Scizor. Yeah, it's fun to see. Hydreigon comes in now in an effort to revenge kill whatever can come out in front of him, but Aegislash should be able to take it out from 72%. Again, barring Chople Berry, but seeing as he switched out before, I just highly doubted his Chople Berry. Probably like Wise Glasses or some like other resistance berry, like Tango Berry for U-turns or Lumberry for Tex. I don't know. Not Leftovers or the more common Life Orb, so it makes sense without Sandton or Life Orb, honestly. But I'm not entirely sure what it is or what it could be, so we'll wait and see here. He goes to Reuniclus here on a double switch, and Drill comes out for Dice. That's a burnt Drill, though, keep that in mind, so this is going to give Jake potentially free reign to do some damage here. But instead he opts to go for Recover, and seeing as it's Energy Ball plus Side Shock, it actually can't do shit to the Scizor, so I think that Dice is going to run away with this game pretty handily at this point due to the Scizor. So it's really cool seeing Scizor thrive in this metagame. All in all, I think this is a really great display from Dice here. He goes to Hydreigon trying to bait the Close Combat or the Destiny Bond, and now I presume he's just going to go out to the Toxapex on this turn. I don't see much need to risk anything else. He could even fire off the Drill if need be. See what he locked into and potentially go Scizor to take advantage of the shield mode, because then it will just force a kill or force a lot of damage on the chipped Mandibuzz, which is at 86%. Perhaps put it in Draco Meteor range for my Dragon after the U-turn, so we'll wait and see. We're going to see him go for the Scarf Shadow Ball, and Dice predicts that, stays in, and goes for the Draco, but it misses! That is unfortunate there, but I don't know if there's much else that we can really see done here. Yeah, I don't see what Jake can really do. Does he just go for another Shadow Ball? He did get the drop, but he's going to need a crit here. I don't really understand the Shadow Ball, honestly. I guess it was predicting the Pex, but it's... Oh, actually, the Pex is kind of weakened, but yeah, close combo with 2Q with that. Maybe predicting the Clef, I don't know, but... Either way, this was well done by Dice staying in there. And since he's not Life Orb, he's able to withstand the Shadow Ball and get the attack off and then switch out and probably live another Energy Ball from Reuniclus, which is pretty cool. Well, it lives... honestly, nothing after this Pokemon dies can do damage to this. Alright, we're going to see the... Oh, it's Roost Hydreigon. That's the game. Yeah, I see no reason why not. Actually, he's probably scared of Toxic, so I might just go Pex here. Um, Also, I just want to say I do deserve some like smart points here for calling this Scarf Aegislash prematurely, even if it was alluded to less bluffed in the early game. I think that was a nice perception and kind of reading the game state there, given the team that Jake was using. So I think this kind of analysis is actually really cool. I love trying to predict more uncommon sets and teams given patterns of play and how they handle certain Pokemon. I think it's a really advanced metric or kind of like analysis tool that a lot of players neglect. So anyway, we're going to see the Hydreigon double in on the Mandibuzz, but since it's not of the Life Orb variety and he's a Toxic Mandibuzz, he's probably going to want to switch out here back to Pex or something like Reuniclus, or Clefable rather. Clefable can pressure the Reuniclus, but Aegislash comes in here against the Clef. I don't know if the Shadow Ball damage indicates any special attack, but either way, he fires off the Drill here on a Shadow Ball. Okay, can take out the Drill, but that's going to invite in the Hydreigon to go for a Nasty Plot, and that should force a lot of progress that can go a long way towards ending the game in Dice's favor. I really don't see a reason not to go Hydreigon, but I guess he could go Scizor, he could go Tax Specs, get Regenerated, and go Hydreigon, then roost it all off. It wasn't really doing much, I guess, difference-wise, so. It is a 4-4 game now, but Reuniclus can't actually do damage to Hydreigon or Scizor. And yeah, he does elect to go to the Pex to get Regenerated off. The Mandibuzz is really useless against the Pex and the Clefable. And the Hippowdon's kind of just sitting there, so. We do in fact see the double, but now he can just go back to Pex, I assume. So. Actually, it goes Clef just because it threatened the Aegislash a little more. That makes sense. Or it threatens the Mandibuzz and Hippowdon a bit more, and Reuniclus a bit more. Yeah, because Scald's just not doing any damage. So yeah, it does make sense. Anyway, speaking of Pex, he goes to it here on the Shadow Ball. It does a critical hit for 39%. So it's going to put it into a kill range. Potentially, it might be a roll. So I wonder if we're going to see the Hydreigon that's at 99% double in here. We do see just that. Gets Regenerator for Dice's Toxapex, and now the Mandibuzz comes in. Again, I would just go Toxapex on this, but I guess he's scared of Reuniclus, so he goes Clef. Well, Aegislash is to play again for Dice. All right. He hasn't revealed if he's Iron Head or not, but he's close combat, so I assume it's like some mixed set. We'll wait and see. He goes for the Shadow Ball into the Hydreigon. That's going to be great for the Dice side. It does 24% only. So now I wonder if he just goes Nasty Plot into Mandibuzz. It says, okay, it's time. He goes Nasty Plot into Mandibuzz. It says, okay, it's time. He's probably going to want to go for one more to make sure he gets a kill on it because it's not Life Orb, unless it's like Dragon Fang or something like that. Well, he goes for it and he gets a crit, and the Mandibuzz drops anyway, so it's looking pretty over. Jake drops a good game, and it looks like he's probably going to concede here. It's going to be Dice is going to emerge victorious for Team US Midwest. A really well-played game with a cool team. He doesn't actually forfeit, though. Don't say good game if you're not forfeiting. I agree. I echo that sentiment from Dice there. You might as well just play it out, or you might as well just forfeit if you say good game. Otherwise, I'm not going to say good game back until I've got my win in my pocket or my loss in the game. Yeah, Jake says rude, but they're just playful. These guys aren't really like enemies or anything. Rude but true. Is he going to forfeit or is he going to withdraw? Well, he doesn't, whatever. It doesn't matter. We're not going to talk about the little banter. We're just going to focus on the game. He goes Pex here on the Shadow Ball predicting the switch, which is a good play. And maybe a max roll or a drop or a crit can help him break through this. I don't know. He goes back to Hydreigon, so he's not going to even give him that time of day. Hydreigon here takes 26 and no drop or crits. Shadow Ball here again does only 25. No drops a crit on a Roost. That Roost Hydreigon has been mad clutch this game, especially without the Life Orb damage, which is a really cool thing that Dice is showcasing on his teams. He goes for another Roost on this turn. Alright. Honestly, isn't he sitting low on Shadow Ball? He's only got 14 left for his 13 Roosts. So yeah, just one more Regenerator pivot. He'd do it if he really wanted to stall it all out, but I just go for Nasty Plot, and Dice feels the same, and this is going to force a kill at this juncture, which is great. As actually, he goes for Roost first, knowing that both the Hippowdon and Reuniclus are slower and die, which is smart. Now he goes for Flash Cannon, which takes out the Hippowdon without risking a miss, so you can't get Toxic or Whirlwinded. Aegislash comes back in knowing he could potentially threaten it with close combat, but I don't even know if that kills, coupled with the fact that it invites in the Toxapex here, as he goes Toxapex on his Shadow Ball, so maybe he just doesn't want to go for close combat. Maybe he wants to get drops on the Pex and then try and win with Reuniclus, but Reuniclus falls short against both the Scizor and the Hydreigon, and Shadow Ball locking with Aegislash invites into the Hydreigon, which is kind of just picking off a Pokemon each and every time it comes in. We're going to see another Shadow Ball here on the Roost. Yep, Dice playing it conservatively enough to make sure he's not risking anything unnecessarily. And it looks like this is ultimately going to come through in the long haul. Nasty putt here. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's cool to see Asia Slash in this metagame as it's dropped out of favor a lot, but Scarf Asia Slash here, unfortunately, was not able to do much. You see a Shadow Ball here. It's not going to get a drop or a crit. Another Roost here, as we're at 10 Roosts and only 8 Shadow Balls. But yeah, now he goes very Nicholas on another one, and Flash Cannon actually takes it out, which is smart, and now Dice is going to be up 4-1, and Shadow Ball is going to come up from Asia Slash, and Dice is going to take this out with the Flash Cannon in the game as it's in shield form. So it kills for the resistance, especially at +4. But yeah, good game. Well played by Dice. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about these teams in the play. Two great players definitely going at it. So yeah, it was really cool to bring it to you guys. But have a great night, guys. Peace out.